There are moments in history when everything seems balanced on the edge of a blade, when the difference between victory and defeat is not measured in strength, but in decisions. This is one of those moments. A story not just about war, but about hesitation. Not just about power, but about timing. And not just about a weapon, but about what happens when the most powerful option is never fully used. Because somewhere in the chaos of conflict, there existed something extraordinary. A weapon that had the potential to change everything. Not in theory, not as a concept, but in reality. Could have shifted the balance. Could have broken the deadlock. Could have forced an ending. But it didn't. And to understand why, we have to go back to a time when the world was trapped in uncertainty. A time when war had reached a point where neither side could move forward, and neither side could back down. Every strategy had been used. Every tactic had been countered. Every advance had been stopped. It wasn't just a battlefield anymore. It was a loop, a cycle of action and reaction. Move and counter-move, attack and defense. And in that cycle, both sides were slowly draining. Resources were fading. Morale was weakening. And time itself was becoming a weapon. Because the longer a war lasts, the more unpredictable it becomes. And unpredictability is dangerous. That's when the search began. Not for more soldiers, not for more firepower, but for something different. Something that could break the pattern. Deep inside restricted facilities, far away from the noise of the battlefield, a different kind of war was being fought. A war of ideas. Engineers, scientists, strategists, all working toward a single goal. Change the game. And slowly, piece by piece, that change began to take shape. This wasn't just another weapon. It wasn't just faster. It wasn't just stronger. It wasn't just bigger. It was smarter. It was designed not just to hit targets, but to control outcomes. Think of traditional weapons like brute force, like trying to break down a door with repeated blows. Now imagine instead having the key. That's what this was. A system built on precision, on timing, on understanding not just where to strike, but when. Because the when matters more than anything. A perfectly timed action can do what 1,000 attacks cannot. And this weapon was built entirely around that idea. Could reach places others couldn't. Operate under conditions others failed in. And most importantly, could create confusion. And confusion in war is priceless. Because when the enemy doesn't understand what's happening, they hesitate. And hesitation creates opportunity. Early testing showed promise. Simulations suggested success. On paper, everything pointed to one conclusion. This could work. No, and not just work. Win. Military planners began to see it differently. This wasn't just part of the strategy anymore. It was the strategy. The solution to a problem that had no clear answer. The move that could finally break the cycle. But war has a way of complicating everything. Because the closer something gets to reality, the more its risks become visible. And soon, the questions began. First, there was excitement. The kind of excitement that comes when a breakthrough feels real. Leaders saw possibility. Commanders saw advantage. Strategists saw a path forward. For a brief moment, it felt like the stalemate might finally end. But then reality stepped in. Because every powerful idea carries powerful consequences. And the stronger the weapon, the bigger the question becomes. Should it be used? The first concern was uncertainty. No matter how perfect something looks in controlled conditions, war is never controlled. Variables change. Conditions shift. Unexpected problems appear. And when they do, even the most advanced systems can fail. What if this weapon didn't perform as expected? What if, at the critical moment, something went wrong? In war, there are no second chances. Then came the issue of execution. This wasn't a weapon you could just deploy at will. It required precision, perfect timing, exact coordination, the right conditions. Everything had to align. And alignment in war is rare. It's like waiting for a storm to pass. only to realize the storm is constantly changing direction. But the biggest concern wasn't technical. It was psychological. What would happen after it was used? Because war is not just about action. It's about reaction. If this weapon was unleashed, how would the enemy respond? Would they collapse? Or would they escalate? History has shown us something important. When one side introduces something overwhelming, the other side doesn't always surrender. Sometimes, they push harder. They take bigger risks. They fight more aggressively. And suddenly, instead of ending the war, you've made it worse. This possibility changed everything. Now the weapon wasn't just an advantage. It was a gamble, a decision with consequences that couldn't be predicted. Leaders began to hesitate.